Welcome to HB Reddit Stories. Today we will see stories of r/am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for declining to fix the errors I made in a blanket I crocheted for someone and taking it back instead? I made a blanket for my sister-in-law Amanda. I was able to give it to her last weekend. She'd asked for it in certain colors. I didn't have any other projects on my to-do list, so I was happy to make it for her. I had most of the colors already too, so it worked out. When I gave it to her, she was excited and she started to look it over. I figured it was to see how it was put together, since she doesn't crochet. After a little bit she said that she loved the blanket, but she couldn't help but notice some of the little mistakes I'd made along the way. I asked her what she meant, and she pointed out some things like I'd accidentally done one row of striping instead of 3 for one section, I'd switched to the wrong color and threw off a pattern at some point, etc. She handed it back to me and told me that she loves my progress with it and couldn't wait to see the finished project. I told her that it was finished. She looked down at it and said that it wasn't done until it was perfect, and I'd made several mistakes that I could easily go back to correct. I was honestly dumbfounded by this. I hate the way perfectionists try to force their quirk onto others. I made this blanket for her for free out of my own free time because I love her. I told her that. She said she knows and she loves me for it, but that she wouldn't be able to use it because she wouldn't be able to focus on anything but the mistakes. I said whatever and took the blanket back and said that if she doesn't want it, I'll keep it. She looked surprised and said that she does want it, she just wants my best work and not something half-assed. I told her that if she thinks me crocheting a whole blanket and making minimal errors is half-assing it, I'd rather just keep the blanket. She's so upset with me and told me I was acting ridiculous and that it wouldn't take me long to fix it. If you know anything about crochet, you know that if I made an error on row 36 of a 11-15 row blanket, that's essentially starting over again. Anyway, I come to you all, LOL, am I the a-hole? Top comments. You aren't being ridiculous, she definitely was. Super not the a-hole. What she might be missing is that there is no fixing an error like you described in crochet. You either start over or pull out the stitches back to the point of error to resume from there. She couldn't be a gracious recipient of a heartfelt, thoughtful, homemade gift, and that shows you something about her. If she requires perfection, that's pretty incompatible with homemade, not to mention super dismissive and presumptuous of her not to prioritize the hard work and hours that went into making it. Given that she's a member of your family and you probably don't want a long-term rift, I would hold my ground but try to diffuse it. Just explain, repeatedly if necessary, that it's too bad your gift didn't work out, but no hard feelings. Do not feel forced to start again or to fix the blanket in any way. Try not to create drama or judgment over her for it. Believe me, her response to this whole thing stands alone. And don't offer to make her anything in the future, that's for sure. Not the a-hole. Edit TOADD. By no hard feelings, I want to clarify I'm focusing primarily on how I suggest OP express her feelings to others in the family, for the purpose of peacemaking. My personal take is that SIL's actions stand alone, and if OP keeps it unemotional and doesn't engage in any back and forth about it, that would be best. I would certainly be offended by SIL's words and behavior though. I knit. I know an error I made in row 12 isn't fixable unless I undo everything above row 12 and reknit it, obviously impossible if the work has already been cast off. Your next gift to miss it has to be perfect should be a How to Crochet book, a couple of different sized hooks, and a nice selection of yarn. Or maybe you could get an actual kit. Give it to her with great excitement, and gush how much you're looking forward to spending time crocheting with her and how thrilled you'll be when she can match you stitch for stitch. Inform her how satisfying it will be for her to crochet her own perfect blanket, to her own standards. Lucky Amanda. Not the a-hole, and I really admire anyone who can crochet. Not the a-hole. I crochet. My philosophy is I make what I love for who I love, and I don't take requests, LOL. My tags actually say, made with love and mistakes. The beauty of something homemade is that it is one of a kind, not made by a machine, so what she sees as mistakes, to me, make it unique and wonderful. Keep it, or gift it to someone who will appreciate it but never make her something again. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister her baby isn't a real baby? I, 26F, got engaged to my fiancée on January 1st. I was very excited to share with my family, of course, and everyone congratulated me and my fiancée. I sent a picture of my ring to my family group chat as well as my Instagram, and everyone has been commenting on the fact I got a very big diamond. My diamond is a lab-grown diamond that is just under 5 ct. I specifically asked for a lab diamond as I believe they're more ethical, as you never know if a mined diamond is a blood diamond. My sister, 31F, was very excited for me, but as soon as I showed her my ring her mood changed and she was telling me that it was too flashy and that it's not practical and that it's too trendy and not timeless. My ring is a pear-shaped solitaire ring with a marquee band and I love it. My sister then told me that there was no way that my fiancé could afford my ring. True, if it was a mined diamond it would be 10x the price, and my fiancé is a second-year resident, and that I should test to see if it's a real diamond. I replied that since it's a lab diamond it was a lot less expensive. She then proceeded to tell me how lab diamonds aren't real diamonds, and since they're made in a lab it doesn't hold the same sentimental value. My sister's ring is a small 1 ct mined diamond and it's beautiful. I never said anything bad about her ring and it suits her. I tried to laugh it off and I told her that I asked for a lab diamond and that I don't want a mined diamond. When I said that, she started yelling at me that it wasn't even a real diamond in the first place and that it was grown in a lab, not the ground. That's when said by her logic, my niece wasn't a real baby then because she was an IVF baby and grown in a lab too. My sister and her husband had a lot of issues conceiving as my sister had some complications with endometriosis. Their IVF journey was really tough and they had multiple rounds and attempts, and one miscarriage, but finally got lucky and had my very healthy niece last year. I know my sister had a hard time conceiving, that was kind of the point I was making. My niece started in a lab but she has beautiful meaning behind her life too. When I made the comment that my niece wasn't a real baby because she was an IVF baby, my sister started crying over the phone. Her husband then called me and berated me and told me I was insensitive and couldn't understand the depths of her emotional turmoil and that I shouldn't have started a fight over a ring. He even said I was ableist. I have endometriosis too. My mom says it's not a big deal but I should let my sister cool off. I usually babysit my niece pretty often but my sister hasn't been answering my calls for a week. My fiancé says although I probably shouldn't have said that, I was justified. I didn't mean it seriously. I know my niece is a real baby and I adore her and spoil her all the time. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I added paragraph and fixed some grammatical errors. Also to update, as of this morning my sister has called me asking for a babysitter. I suspected that this would be why she would call me, as I have been babysitting for free when no one else in our family or brother-in-law family will. She apologized that her husband called me and cussed me out, but she didn't apologize for her comments. I apologized for what I said as it was insensitive but explained to her that she misunderstood what I meant. And to everyone who is confused, I do not think IVF babies are not real babies. Obviously. I was so taken aback that some of you guys read my post and thought that I said by my sister's own logic she thinks her baby isn't a real baby because apparently things can't be real if they're grown in a lab to her. The point I was making was my diamond is real just like her baby is real. Top comments. Everyone sucks here. Sister is the a-hole for being so transparently jealous. And you are absolutely the a-hole for using your sister conception issues to try and score points in a sibling argument. Oh, and your mom is also the a-hole for thinking that isn't a big deal. I feel sorry for your dad, I truly do. Not the a-hole, you didn't really tell your sister that her baby is not a real baby, you used the comparison as a way to show her how idiotic her arguments were. And you are right. I'm truly not understanding why people are saying YTA. Opie is making a point to her sister. To her sister's damn logic, her niece isn't real. And of course she's real, we all know that. She's not attacking the niece, she's simply pointing out truths. Truth is, the niece was born through IVF and her diamond was made in a lab. Sister should have kept her damn mouth shut and said congratulations. Next story. Am I the a-hole for no longer giving support to my wife's family after I became successful with my own company after they talked down about me? My early 30s, wife, mid-20s, grew up in a fairly poor environment. Her grandpa had money, but her mom didn't and her sister doesn't. My wife has an incredibly strong work ethic, she's probably more so defined as a workaholic. When I first met her, I was in trucking, making about $50K, $70K/year. Since then I developed a niche for a specialty marketing field and became very good at it. All my friends encouraged me to go into business for myself with a marketing company. My wife was fully supportive of this, even after we discussed the financial difficulties we would have for the first year or so due to a limited budget. I made sure she knew that some months, I may not get a check from the business, my salary is paid monthly. Her family, however, were not. They accused me of neglecting my family, being lazy, not wanting to work, etc. They would constantly be bringing up the fact that I didn't have a job because I was always home, working remote. She would defend me, but they would ignore it and continue to call me lazy and a deadbeat for putting my daughter in daycare while I worked from home. I was still driving a truck part-time to have steady, reliable income, but it was only half of what I was making on a good week. In the last year, however, I have grown my income from my business beyond what I was making in trucking, and have very little overhead. Since we cut costs back when I first started, we realized a lot of things we were paying for, we could do without or found other alternatives, and we never really added those expenses back, so it's like we have significantly more money now. I still drive a semi occasionally for a friend who owns his truck, mainly to keep my CDL active and stay knowledgeable in the industry as a fallback. Her family has taken note, and they are constantly asking to go out to eat with us, hang out with us, etc., then get mad when I never pay for the meals, the outing, the vacation, etc., aside from my part of the tab, obviously. Looking back, I understand why they never had money, they were living well beyond their means, but if it makes them happy then it is what it is. I let my wife do whatever she wants with her money, which sometimes includes buying stuff for her family, which I support her doing with her money if that's how she wants to spend it, but I make sure that she knows I don't want a dime of my money going to her family, since they were very unsupportive of what made us our money and would go as far as to talk down about me for doing what lead to our money. Top comments. You are not obligated to play nice just because they want your money. I would, however, play nice if I wanted my partner to be happy. You can be polite without giving them anything. Especially if they haven't apologized. I'm going with not the a-hole. OP replies. My wife is definitely happy. She is content with our arrangement and has never complained about it, but recently her family has been putting pressure on her to make me loosen up and be part of the family more. I'm curious as to what your wife says when you say you don't want a dime going to her family. That will tell you everything you need to know. Also, you are not the a-hole. OP replies. She's fine with it. Occasionally, if I know there is something she really wants to get for her family, I'll compromise and pick up a bill or two on her side that she normally pays so she has some extra money to spend on them. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my roommate's cat into my room after it apologized? I, 27F, share an apartment with my roommate, Lily, 26F, who has a cat named Muffin. Muffin is adorable but has a habit of sneaking into my room and knocking things over. Last week, I came home to find Muffin had somehow gotten in and destroyed a puzzle I had spent hours working on. Pieces were scattered everywhere, some were chewed up, and one was lost entirely. I was furious. I told Lily that Muffin needed to stay out of my room, and she agreed, but she also said Muffin felt bad and wanted to apologize. I laughed it off, assuming she was joking. The next day, I found a little note on my desk written in Lily's handwriting that said, "I'm sorry, Muffin." Along with it was a cat treat. I thought it was funny but didn't change my stance. Since then, Lily has been passive-aggressively saying things like, Muffin's just trying to make things right, or you're holding a grudge against a cat. She even suggested that I let Muffin into my room supervised so she can earn back my trust. I told her no and that I wasn't interested in giving her cat another chance to destroy my stuff. Now she's calling me heartless for not accepting Muffin's apology and is acting like I'm being unreasonable. Am I the a-hole here? Top comments. Find a new letter from Muffin in which she denounces the previous letter as fake, boasts over her lack of remorse, and vows to do it again. Confront Lily with it. If Lily persists, keep finding increasingly sketchy letters from Muffin as she steadily broadens her nefarious ambitions. Really commit to the scenario. Out crazy cat person her. Obviously not the a-hole. I love cats, username checks out, but they are unapologetic little gremlins that do what they want. If you don't want Muffin in your room, then there is zero valid reason for Lily to keep demanding she have access to it. That said, you could have a lot of fun with this if you wanted to. I like the fact Opie made sure to specify the note was written in Lily's handwriting, as if without that bit of information we would have assumed the cat actually wrote the apology note and gave you its treats, presumably the only treat it was given for the day. How dare you nonchalantly reject an apology from the kitty known as Muffin aka Lil Puzzle Destroyer. As a cat owner, no, they aren't going to apologize for what they have done if they could. Because I own 3 cats and while 2 of them are sweethearts, I know they are still cats and will knock/break stuff without any remorse. Especially my orange tabby, dude's a total a-hole, he will stare at you too while doing it. Put it plainly, cats don't give AF***ck. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister that she is insane for not teaching her daughter English? My 20F family is originally from Sweden. My sister Kristen, 30F, was born in Sweden and was raised speaking Swedish and English. She and my parents came to the US when she was 10, and I was born not long afterwards. I was raised only speaking English. My parents did not bother having me learn Swedish because it isn't a widely spoken language where we live, and in fact when I was little, they had a rule that Kristen could only talk to me in English. They did this because they didn't want to hinder me being able to communicate with my peers. I've visited Sweden maybe twice when I was really little and don't have any recollections. Kristen, however, has a lot of fond memories from her childhood. Since she's moved out, she has regularly visited Sweden. She has been married to her husband, Eric, 30M, for about 3 years. Eric is also from Sweden and came to the US in his early 20s. Eric was also raised speaking Swedish and English, but is more comfortable talking in Swedish. They have a daughter, Elsa, who 18 months old and learning to talk. When they came over for Christmas dinner, I tried to talk to Elsa, but Kristen told me that I can only talk to Elsa in Swedish, but not English. I thought she was raising Elsa speaking both Swedish and English, but she told me that they are not going to bother teaching her English. I asked why, and Kristen told me that they want Elsa to be connected to her heritage and also because they plan on eventually moving back to Sweden. I asked if she had idea as to when they will move, and she said it could be 1 year or 10 years. I told Kristen that she is doing Elsa a big disservice by not teaching her English. She told me it won't be an issue as she'll learn it when she goes to kindergarten. I said that I can understand wanting Elsa to know Swedish, and if they had any immediate plans to move back to Sweden, then I could understand prioritizing Swedish over English. But since they don't have any immediate plans to move back there, she should learn both languages now so she can communicate with her English-speaking relatives in the US, as well as her peers and her teachers when she goes to school. I said that not teaching Elsa any English at all is insane. Kristen got mad at me and told me I am being xenophobic. I told her this would not be an issue if Elsa speaks English too, but because almost nobody around here speaks Swedish, she's hindering her daughter. She said that it's possible that by the time Elsa is ready to start school, they might have moved back to Sweden. My parents are mostly on my side but say that they understand why she's doing this, and I was being harsh by saying that she was insane for not teaching her English and should be more understanding. I feel it is equally harsh for her to say I'm xenophobic. I think it's great to be multilingual, but one needs to be able to communicate with the majority of the people where they live. But now I'm starting to feel like maybe I was too harsh. Top comments. Not the a-hole. They live in the US, but they might move back to Sweden, so they're not teaching their daughter English. That's actually pretty dangerous. For example, what happens if Elsa gets lost and she can't understand when people ask her where her parents are, nor could she tell anyone who they are? Every little kid gets lost at some point in their lives, so this is not an unlikely scenario. In an emergency, how would, say, 3-year-old Elsa be able to tell anyone? I also have a good friend from Sweden, and she speaks 8 languages. According to her, English is a required subject in school in Sweden. So Elsa would actually be behind other kids who may have been speaking and/or understanding English their whole lives. Both your parents and Kristen are crazy. Teach your kids as many languages as you can, at the age when learning languages is free. The more you know, the better. Numerous studies have shown a minor delay in the early grades, and then a great boost in later years. You are the a-hole, and literally nobody in these comments knows jack about what they're talking about or language acquisition. Your sister is doing exactly what experts recommend in order to teach a native language in a region it's not spoken. I promise it's not going to slow her kids down in the slightest. Learning English is inevitable in the US, and not only that, the kid is going to end up more fluent and comfortable in English regardless. You'd be surprised by how much your niece will already know by the time school starts, and by the time first grade begins nobody will be able to tell she didn't learn English as a first language at home. I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel HB Reddit Stories.